Washington Republican lawmakers have largely dismissed concerns about how their $1.5 trillion tax cut will add to the federal deficit. Now, some Democrats are warning that the tax rewrite will ultimately be financed by gutting entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. The possibility of cuts to safety net programs appeared more likely on Tuesday, as the Congressional Budget Office warned that the tax bill could set off an arcane budget rule that would make deep cuts to Medicare over the next decade. Republican lawmakers have turned a blind eye to the effect of the tax bill on the deficit, saying the tax cuts will essentially pay for themselves through increased economic growth. But the party of deficit hawks is beginning to once again complain about the ballooning federal deficit, suggesting that spending cuts must be enforced to reduce the national debt, which has surpassed $20 trillion. At a town hall-style event in Virginia on Tuesday night, Paul D. Ryan, the House Speaker, said the most important steps that could be taken to reduce the national debt were spurring economic growth and making changes to entitlement programs. You cannot get the national debt under control, you cannot get that deficit under control, if you don't do both: grow the economy, cut spending, said Mr. Ryan, Republican of Wisconsin. The Republican tax plan, he said, grows the economy. We've got a lot of work to do in cutting spending. Democrats said the tax bill was opening the door to the kind of entitlement cuts that Republicans have long wanted to pursue. This is a nasty, two-step strategy that has long been the holy grail for hard-right Republicans, said Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York and the minority leader. If this bill passes, you can bet the Republicans will immediately sharpen the knives for middle-class benefits. The Congressional Budget Office said on Tuesday that a law passed in 2010 would necessitate cuts to Medicare of as much as $25 billion next year. The pay-as-you-go law requires that legislation that adds to the federal deficit be paid for with spending cuts or other offsets. If that does not happen, automatic cuts to programs like Medicare kick in. The Medicare cuts, which are capped at 4% of the program's annual spending, could reach almost $500 billion over 10 years, according to the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The cuts can be averted through bipartisan legislation, though it is unclear whether Republicans would go along with such workarounds. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, the top Democrat on the Finance Committee, said previous Republican tax cut efforts had paved the way for sweeping spending cut proposals after the red ink reared its head. After President George W. Bush signed tax cuts in 2001 and 2003, his administration sought to overhaul Social Security and Medicare in hopes of cutting costs. I can't believe how quickly the deficit hawks in the Republican Party flew away after they saw the $1.5 trillion, Mr. Wyden said of the lost revenues that Republicans have approved in their tax plan.